Welcome to Further Ed with your host, David Schnurman, accomplished entrepreneur, innovator, and educator. Each week, Further Ed will offer an intimate look at trailblazing visionaries who have transformed the landscape of business and society at large. And now we introduce our guests and our host, David Schnurman.
Welcome to Further Ed. I'm your host, David Schnurman. Each week we meet with innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to talk about topics ranging from starting a business to running a business to what's going on in education. Today we're lucky enough to have David Perla, who has a background he's an attorney. He was general counsel at Monster.
Correct.
And then he started a company called Pangea3, which was legal outsourcing. He raised money. He took the company and sold it to Thomson Reuters. We'll talk about the story. It was reported that he sold it for up to $100 million, somewhere around that number. So we're going to learn about how you take a company, from the start or from somewhere where you've grown to a small business and really raise it to a company where you can sell it for that significant number. So David, thank you for taking the time to coming in here today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with your story. Who are you? What makes you so? We're all trying to be entrepreneurs, especially in America. Everyone thinks they can start from. We don't believe in that. We believe we can make anything happen. What is it about you that made this happen? Just tell us a little about who you are.
Sure. I think it's a great opening question because I actually am a believer here that anyone can make anything happen through a combination of hard work and opportunity, certainly knowing the right people, and having a good idea. But I do think my story, while it was successful, is probably not a unique story. It's one which we found an idea, decided to put a lot of effort into it. Tell you a little bit about me. I was your prototypical New York corporate lawyer. I went to law school, graduated in '94, worked for 5 years as a corporate lawyer here in Manhattan, and then became an in-house attorney at the parent company for Monster.com, and ultimately ended up becoming the head of the legal department at what we all know as Monster.com. And in that capacity, hired lawyers and non-lawyers to help do my work, and stayed very close to all of the people that I had become close with in law school and in college. So professionally close and personally close. And about 10 years after law school, a little earlier than that, one of my roommates and I, who had remained close, sat down to talk about what we were going to do with the rest of our lives. We were approaching our mid-30s, and really sat down to talk about, hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to be in-house lawyers our whole life? Do we want to be lawyers our whole life? And in the course of a series of conversations, ultimately over dinner, we started kicking around the idea of what would happen next in India and what would happen next with global outsourcing. And we struck on this idea of, could we outsource legal work? Could we get lawyers in India to do the work that US lawyers were doing today, lower the cost, make it more efficient, and I don't think we were thinking about transformation, but transform the legal industry, change the legal industry.
You started with a big vision.
Yeah, it was a big vision. It actually started broader. It started with my business partner, a very close friend named Sanjay Kamlani, started talking about equity research and quantitative analytics and knowledge process outsourcing, things I didn't understand. And I actually said to him, I said, look, Sanjay, I don't understand all that big stuff. I know three things. I know law, I know HR because I was at Monster, and I know technology. But I've got to believe with technology the way it is today and what you're telling me about India, that if we found enough talented lawyers, I could outsource my whole department for half the cost.
That you saw potential for your own department.
I saw potential for me, and I was being sort of tongue-in-cheek, but he looked up from his pasta and said, "Why don't we?"
This is just conversation. This isn't even business.
This is just chatting. This is two friends. His wife was at the dinner, just catching up.
Conversations that happen every single day at every dinner. In New York City, people talking about, here's a business we should start. That's where you were.
Correct.
So what? Take us through reality.
Sure. So from there, we were talking regularly. We're close friends, and we both sort of said, hey, look, we think that idea has merit. What do you think? And I would say we spent about 2 months really kicking the idea around, talking with people, talking with one another. How serious were we? Were we prepared to give up the the nice jobs we had there. It gets kind of cushy.
I mean, it's not like you're 21, you're in your 30s,
in our
established
30s,
career.
he had a kid. And by the end of that year, I think both of us had this strong sense of we were prepared to jump off the track, to get off the course we were on and to try the entrepreneurial route. Once we decided that, it was a fairly straight line to saying, okay, when are we going to leave our jobs and what do we want to do from now until we leave our jobs? What kind of planning are we going to do? What are the things we need to do so that when we start our company, it's the fastest route towards a build and not floundering around? What we ended up doing was talking to probably 100 prospective clients, 100 in-house lawyers and law firm lawyers, to make sure that the business idea we had, which was a good business idea, is something people would pay for if we built it.
Well, that's an interesting point because I feel like a lot of people skip that step. They have the idea and then they just spend all their time building the product. Right. How did you just get on the phone and cold call, or all friends?
So it started with friends, but as most entrepreneurs learn, and we certainly did, every phone call leads to a new introduction. Every conversation, someone will get excited and they would say, you ought to talk to this person, you ought to talk to that person. So very quickly, I couldn't keep up with my to-do list and my call. I had a day job, but I had so many names and so many people to call. Some of them were prospective investors, most were prospective clients. And it probably had 100 people that we spoke to.
What was the big breaking point for you where you realized this is doable?
I think we hit a conclusion where we spoke to enough lawyers who said to us, if you can build it, and nothing you're telling me leads me to think you can't, if you can build it and the work is good, I would take $1 out of my pocket and hire you. And ultimately, enough people say to you, I'll pay for it if it's built, you start to conclude that you're onto a good business.
Okay.
We also looked around. We saw 2 companies that were doing it in some respects, but not quite the way we thought it ought to be done. So our sense was we weren't the only people thinking about it, but no one was doing it the way we were thinking about, and that if we moved quickly, we could have a very early advantage in creating the brand and creating a first mover status for ourselves.
So how did you build the company?
Yeah, the cliff notes is, we called it at the time the golden triangle, which was we did 3 things simultaneously. We targeted clients that we recruited to sign up as pilot clients, whether paid or unpaid. We found investors to give us money, assuming that we had clients and a team, and we found a team. We went off to India and recruited a team to come work for us when we were ready to open the doors. And that took us from the summer of 2004. We opened our doors at the beginning of 2005. So it took us about 6 months to do all 3 of those. There's an old children's story called Stone Soup that some people have read, that the soldiers they want food and no one will give them any food, so they go out and they say they're making soup with a stone and water, and each person contributes a vegetable or a piece of meat, and at the end they have this terrific soup. We like to say that that's exactly how we did it. We had nothing, and we convinced people that we were going to have a delicious soup at the end of the day, and each person contributed. So the team in India had to believe that we had the money in the bank and that we had clients. The clients believed that we had the team and had enough money to pay the team, and the investors believed that we had clients and that we had a team to do the work.
That's a really great way of describing it. I've never heard it in that term before. But yeah, it's making something out of nothing, which is certainly any business.
That's right.
Is that how you raised the first $1.5 million?
What we concluded, and every business is different, what we concluded was the piece that the investors were very focused on was building the team and making sure that we had the people in India. Yeah. At least for us, the investors could get their arms around the market, and they believed by the fall, they believed that we would get clients. We seemed credible, we had the right background, we had been law firm lawyers. What they wanted to see was that team, so that made going off to India and getting a team and an office very important. And once we had that, we were able to lock in a number of early angel investors, and then we secured a strategic investor who ended up taking 1/3 of our first round.
So you raised the $1.5 million, you start getting some clients. Ultimately, just so we're all on the same page here, legal outsourcing is what?
So legal outsourcing encompasses all manner of sin, as it were. For us, we do what we'll call the front-end legal services. What we do is sold only to other lawyers. It's sold to in-house lawyers and to law firms. And if we tried to do it for the non-lawyer market, we would be practicing law without a license. So effectively, we're doing what lawyers do, which is we draft contracts, we review contracts, we summarize contracts, we manage the contract process, we review documents in connection with litigations, we draft patents, we review patent claims, we're involved in a lot of patent litigation.
Now, the question, let's say an attorney charges $500 an hour, they hire you at, I don't know, $100 an hour, or is that less?
Significantly less.
Okay, significantly less. Are they charged? Do they have to let their clients know that they're not doing the work and the clients get the cost savings too?
They do, but more often than not, the client is paying us directly, or the client is our client. So the large financial services companies, large pharmas, large technology companies
but it's the
hire
legal
us.
department so you're working with, I remember I heard you say something, $250,000 is the average, the smallest client that's
It's about right. Okay. It's about right.
So how did you get to your first $5 million? How long did it take you to get $5 million in sales?
So it took us till the end of year 3 to get to $5 million in sales. All direct. We had no channel partnerships.
Okay.
We built it one by one. So every client we had and today have was a client we built ourselves. The relationship was built by us. So it took us a long time to get to that first $5 million.
What are the margins in that business?
So the margins are pretty good on a gross margin basis. So our direct cost of delivering that service, it's about a 70% gross margin business, and the net margins run anywhere from 20 to 30%.
Okay. And so at the $5 million sales, how many clients was that about?
The bad news was very diffuse set of clients. Probably that year, that was 2007, probably serviced over 100 clients in some capacity, but we had no client, the loss of which would have been fatal to the business.
Okay.
So we were in a very good position, and the venture capitalists like that if we lost a client, and you lose clients, they merge, they go out of business, no client really controlled our business.
And the reason I bring out the $5 million mark, if there's all this reading on businesses and entrepreneurial, there's that 1 to 5 million, and then breaking past that 5 million point is generally the challenge.
That's right.
Did you feel that, and if so, how did you get past that wall?
I think we felt it at 5. We also felt it at 10. So for us, the $1 million a month mark, loosely $10 million, was a huge psychological threshold. And it took us a while to get there. To get from 5 to 10 was not as hard as breaking that barrier of $1 million a month. Some of it was psychology. Some of it was just we had a lot of clients, none of whom had huge volume. Some of them started delivering an enormous volume, and we started landing much larger clients as we became more credible in years 4, 5, and 6. The other thing we did that I think is really important for young businesses to do, particularly with their teams, is we created a culture and a psychology in the business that simply said to people, this is going to happen. We are going to have $1 million month, and then we're going to have a $2 million month, a $3 million month. And once that happens, there'll be no looking back. We never committed to when it would happen.
Was it just hiring more salespeople, getting better salespeople? Was it just being more aggressive? I mean, is it that?
It was all of the above. It was hiring the right salespeople. So quantitatively, the business, when we crossed $25 million a year, didn't have even twice as many people doing sales as when we did $7 or $8 million a year. But we did hire more. We hired better. We knew how to do performance improvement plans. All that, we got better executionally.
Can you take me through, just so we're all on the same page, what your growth rate was until you sold it?
Sure. So in 2007, we were doing, we did roughly $5 million that year.
In 2005 it started?
It started in 2005.
So 0.
So 2005, we did probably $500,000.
Okay.
We did 2-ish, maybe just shy of 2 million in 2006, 5 million in 2007. The growth slowed in 2008 to probably about $8 million annually. 2009, call it somewhere in the low teens maybe. Somewhere in there, maybe even 12, 13, and then it rocketed into the 20s.
And was that in conjunction when you raised $7 million from Sequoia?
We raised the money in 2007. So we raised $7 million in the year we did $5 million in revenue.
Interesting.
Their sense was we would do about $5 million, but they saw hockey stick growth. So for us, the seminal year was 2009, when the clients that we'd cultivated started seeing the value, and they were under pressure to do things differently. So the economy and the fallout from the financial crisis had a major impact on businesses that were in efficiency and cost savings. So that helped an awful lot.
So there's a lot here. You raised $7 million when you were at $5 million, which is a lot in itself. Did you seek that money, or did they seek you?
Little of both. All entrepreneurs, and we were like them in this regard, keep in touch with clients, keep in touch with investors, keep in touch with prospective clients, prospective investors, future team members. So my view was, if you talk to venture capitalists as an entrepreneur, you will get tons of advice that you'd have to pay for otherwise. The questions a venture capitalist will ask are so valuable. So we always spoke to them anyway.
As if you were looking to raise money.
Or just to keep in touch.
Yeah.
And venture capitalists are very good about reaching out, and they want updates. I think that's a facet of the entrepreneurial and venture community that is a little different than straight business, just the notion of staying in touch to learn whether or not those relationships ever involve doing business together.
So you raising the money, was that a long process? Once you raised it, did you invest in more people, more infrastructure?
So the first few $100,000 in the first round is the hardest money ever, and for us, the hardest thing we've ever done. The mechanics were easy. I was a corporate lawyer, but getting people to take the check out of their pocket was very difficult.
Yeah.
The next set of money was much easier in that first round, and thereafter, it wasn't that it was easy, it was that there was enough interest that we never doubted we would raise money in that second round or that third round. So yes, we actively sought it, but we knew we were going to close the rounds, we knew we were going to raise money, and we knew roughly what valuation it would be at. The market is pretty efficient in the US at telling you what you're worth. The people that thought we were worth less, we stayed in touch with, but we very politely told them, we had a sense of what we were going to raise, and we also didn't have an unrealistic sense of wanting more than that. We knew the market had a valuation on us.
The last question in regards to that is, I noticed that you were co-CEOs with your founder. Did you feel you were holding on and this was sort of going much faster than you expected and you were trying to build it, or you felt pretty much this was, did you need somebody else to help you see it through, or did Sequoia bring that for you?
I don't think we needed necessarily someone to hold our hand through it. I think for us, because we were building a global business where the client was in the United States or in Europe, all of the product was being consumed in the United States or Europe, but all of the delivery and all of the operation was taking place in India, we felt very strongly that it needed equal leaders on both sides, as opposed to a CEO in the US and a subordinate in India, or vice versa. And we just felt strongly that model could work, and that we had the right partnership to do that.
I'm going to take a step back for a second, because there's a couple things that I wanted to ask you about. The culture of the company, which we believe in, is the number one thing. We have our own core values that everyone follows. We have core value cards. We have a culture blog. We have core value meetings every day. You have 10 of them, and I found these very interesting. You said the 10 things that you had at Pangea3 were, it was entrepreneurial, it was ethical, urgent, transparent, aggressive, almost to the point of alpha, outspoken, disruptive, creative, and client-driven.
And meritocratic.
Meritocratic, thank you. Tell me about this a little bit.
Yeah, so some of those, I would say, they fall into two categories. One are things that are reflections of my business partner or myself personally, and the others are things that he and I consciously decided were important to build the business we wanted. So let's talk about meritocratic. I believe in merit in its own right. I think that's a very entrepreneurial thing. I think it's a very American thing. We also believed in India to build an organization that was so unique and so different from the way the legal and professional services business operates today in India that it would set us apart and it would make us an employer of choice. So that was a conscious decision to make merit and not lockstep and not rank be the priority for the organization. On the other side, aggressive and transparent, those are personal traits that Sanjay and I share. And I think it's important, for other entrepreneurs to not copy things that don't fit, in that respect, the personality of their founders and their leaders. We are aggressive people. The people that work for us that can't adapt to that or are uncomfortable by that won't really fit in the organization. We're also transparent people. So we are open books. We will share with you everything we're thinking. There isn't room in an organization that we lead for people who try to hide things or engage in subterfuge. That was very common in India. It's not a particularly transparent business environment. I think it's great that we did it from a business perspective, but also reflects us, and everyone knows that about us. It also gave us the permission we needed as entrepreneurs to not have to worry about our own behavior. So people understood that if I said something, it meant it was exactly what I was thinking, that they never had to wonder what the secondary meaning. It really is a freeing thing when people understand that about their founders and their CEOs, that there's that transparency. And some of the others, I think we just felt very strongly about that. That was us, to be urgent. In some respects, maybe we moved too quickly, maybe we made some mistakes, but that reflected the fact that we didn't want to be trying this and in 20 years still be hoping it would work out.
We have a few minutes left, and I want to go to transition to that. You had said something that I heard you say where when you were the two guys in a room, you had said at Pangea3 you were the #1 legal outsourcing company until you were.
Right.
How important do you think that was for you in terms of that mindset throughout the growth of the company?
I think it was critical.
Well, the layup question. But
Sure.
Tell me
No, but I think, by the way, it's not to say that everyone needs to decide they're #1 in the market. For us, that was part of our culture, was to be #1. We didn't want to be part of the industry. We wanted to lead and dominate the industry. So, but I think whatever it is you decide as an entrepreneur you want to be, you do have to declare it, and in the beginning, fake it till you make it, and then simply declare that this is the case and let the reality catch up. So we did a lot of trainings, corporate trainings, personal development trainings, the stuff where you get in a room and really feel very vulnerable. And a lot of those are about intention. What is your intention? And if your intention is to be #1 or your intention is to be whatever it is, and you state that and you define everything around that goal, it will happen. Too many people are vague about their intention. What they really want to do is come in every day and go through a set of activities. We had a very, very discrete, defined goal to be #1 and ultimately either to sell the business or go public. And everyone understood that. So when we ultimately sold it, we had parties in both New York and India. People were up dancing on tables. There was no fear of what happens to me because everyone knew the intention of the company.
Well, it's certainly one of the things. It sounds like you had a lot of clear directions from the beginning. Sometimes hindsight's 20/20. Was it as clear as that? And you said you were looking to sell the company. Was that something where you were actually at that point searching out companies to buy because you had that growth, significant growth in the 5th year?
We weren't actively seeking. We were approached, but I think the intention was widely known that we were venture capital funded and we were built for some type of an event. Whether it was an IPO or a sale of the company. And our people understood that. And for us, the day-to-day of running the business was very much about articulating for them how what we were doing in a given day, week, month, and quarter fit in with the vision of growing the company in a particular way.
So let me ask you this. One of the things that I feel is growing a business is I never feel like I'm always looking further ahead. I'm never feel accomplished. I feel like I haven't done I'm not where I should be. How easily did you fit into this role of a fast growth company, and then after the sale of the company, saying, okay, this is who I am now, or are you still trying to catch up like I am right now?
I'm still trying to catch up.
Okay, so it's normal.
I think any leader, by the way, not just entrepreneurs, if they feel like they're done and they've accomplished it, they probably should hand over the reins. So I've actually left the company as promised after 2 years, and we said when they bought the company, we said, look, after 2 years, it will have been 8.5 years for us. There must be better people to grow it as an internal unit of Thomson Reuters. But I never hit the point where I felt that it was built as well as we wanted to build it, or we'd achieved our vision. Once we'd sold it for those 2 years, I still felt that we were aiming, it was still an aspirational endeavor for me.
Sure. And we like to end off with one final advice for somebody who is a business owner trying to grow the business to the next level. What can you give them?
I'll quote a very close friend who invested in the business, who's built two, which is to never confuse a clear vision with a straight line. You can have a great, clear vision, the best idea in the world, and it's achievable. Seeing that vision is always simpler than the complexity of getting to that place. So yeah, the vision is very clear, but there'll be swamps in the road and turns and forks that are unanticipated, and that's part of the ride. So I think where most entrepreneurs get tripped up is they can see it very clearly, but they don't appreciate it's not a straight line from here to there. It's a very twisty road, and it's rocky, and weird, difficult things will come at you. Those challenges don't mean that the vision is less clear. It just means it's hard.
That's a great quote. And David, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's a great story. And thank you once again for watching Further Ed, and we'll be here same time next week.
You've been watching Further Ed with your host, David Schnurman. Mr. Schnurman will be back with you next week at the same time. If you have any questions about this program, please send an email to info@furthered.com.